thanks for the kind and inspiring words, I have to say. And yeah, great to be here in Porto and to see you all. Such a great number of people here in the room. For the ones who don't know me, I'm Joost Beaumont. I'm the head of bank research at ABN AMRO Bank in Amsterdam, with lead responsibility for covered bond research and top-down research on banks. But I'm also the ECB's chairman of the Data and Statistics Working Group. And that's the reason why Luca asked me to entertain you this morning about covered bond statistics. And that's a challenge, of course, because talking about statistics is not something that people really like to do, let alone to listen to. So. And I also know a lot of people had some drinks last night, so I hope it wasn't too heavy, but I will do my best to make it as enlightening as possible, because in the end I was thinking when I was traveling here, this presentation is actually lays a bit the foundations about what you're going to discuss this week here in Porto, about all the technicalities of covered bonds, the jurisdictions, maturity, extension, whatever. This will tell you in 20 minutes, 50 minutes, the whole size of the market, how does the market look like, and we need a market, of course, to discuss all these technicalities, and being a week in Porto or in Iceland, etc. So I hope the market will continue to be as big as it is. So let's kick off. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to ask them. But I try to go quite quickly. Actually, I'm not a timekeeper, but tell me when I need to stop, because that can be difficult for me as well sometimes. But now this is a chart, and the data series, they start actually in 2003, which is quite interesting because we now have 20 years of data. And when I looked at this chart, you can see 2003, 1.5 trillion, so 1,500 billion of covered bonds outstanding. But in 20 years' time, that amount has more than doubled to 3.3 trillion of euros we're talking about. So it's a real sizable market that matters for banks, and is the bottom line is it's a key funding tool for banks, and I will show you, use it to finance mainly mortgages with that. Maybe focusing last year, 2023, now as you can see, new record is being reached. Actually, the pace of growth was the strongest since 2008, so the global financial crisis. So last year was a pretty good year for the covered bond market. So okay, lesson one, total size 3.3 trillion we're talking about. Then covered bonds are of course backed by collateral, and as you can see in this chart, more than 90% of covered bonds outstanding are backed by mortgages. So it also gives you a bit of a feeling for how important covered bonds are to finance your mortgage at a hopefully an attractive rate. Of course, you also have public sector covered bonds, and you can see 2003 there were much more public sector covered bonds, but that market has slowed down, but still very important for a couple of issuers. And of course, we also have some niche markets with ship covered bonds and other covered bonds. And for other covered bonds, you have to move to Spain, basically, where you have some export guaranteed, covered bonds that are backed by export guaranteed loans. That's for the purist among us. But then, of course, where do covered bond issuers come from? Well, go back to 2003, and it was purely European market. So only issuers, banks from the EU were issuing covered bonds. But happily and luckily, the market has been become more global, and I think that's also one of the key points, is that the covered bond brand is getting more and more known across the globe. We have, of course, the discussion about third country equivalents fit in this chart. And as you can see, 2023, Now you can't see it here, but I can tell you the chart starts at 80%, so it's still the 88% I think is coming from the EU. But in 2003 was the first time that the non-EU countries had a share of more than 10%. So that's quite an achievement. And you can see most of them are coming from the Asia-Pacific region, where you have, of course, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Korea, Japan, and North America is basically Canada, I have to be honest. But also South America, we have covered bonds outstanding, and I saw indeed Brazil present here as well. And maybe in the future we will have them from Africa and more markets from not the EU. So globalization of covered bonds. Then this is a chart that shows, okay, you can issue covered bond, but you need someone to buy it. And there are different ways to place your covered bonds. You can do private placements directly with an investor, and also retained covered bonds fit in this picture. Retained covered bonds, the issuer buys them themselves and uses the covered bonds as collateral, mainly in central bank liquidity operations. So during QE you saw and TLTROs, you saw a lot of retained covered bond issuance. And then you can, of course, place them publicly with investors. And there you have the breakdown by size as well. So you have below 500 million and the most liquids. There's our chairman of the liquidity task, so he can tell also a lot about this. If you have any questions about it, you can ask Stefan. But as you can see, the majority actually of covered bonds is placed in benchmark size, so more than 500 million. There's almost, I think, 2 trillion of bonds with that size publicly placed. So that shows a bit the liquidity of the market. And of course, we had a central bank buying an awful lot of covered bonds in the previous years, but definitely there should be enough covered bonds outstanding for investors to trade. So it's a very liquid product as well. Then this is a bit of a touchy subject maybe, but here we the country ranking, and I was a bit surprised. I checked it yesterday with Sascha from the VDP. I said, well, was it really true that in 2003 we had more than 1 trillion German Pfandbriefe outstanding? He said, yeah, that was true. So I'm quite comfortable with it, with the chart. And but as you can see, there are 3 countries a bit competing all the time about who is the biggest. And actually France won last year with 3 billion. And thanks to one bank that did almost 100 billion of retained covered bond issuance, destroying a little bit the big picture. But well, it is what it is. So France is now leading, but very closely followed by Denmark. And I won't bore you with the Danes. But they have a very large domestic covered bond market. And Germany is, I think, third. So, these 3 are a bit dominating covered bond jurisdictions, but they're not alone. As you can see, Sweden, Spain, Netherlands actually also have more than 200 billion of covered bonds outstanding. So it has many, I think in the end there are 34 countries where covered bonds are being issued. So that's quite a substantial number. Well, you will hear a lot about maturity extensions. I'm luckily not going into details of these, but what I can do to you is to provide data about the different maturity types. So covered bonds outstanding with soft bullet structures, hard bullet structures, and conditional pass-through. And as you can see, the soft bullet structure, and that means that in really worst case, the maturity of the covered bond can be extended by mostly 12 months to, in my view, prevent fire sales and find a good solution to repay investors. So the covered bond directive allows for this structure, and that has led, or it was already becoming a bit the dominant structure, but has now really become the has actually further strengthened its dominance. 66% of the outstanding covered bonds have a soft bullet structure, and 33% have hard bullet structures, as there's still issuers using this structure and also sticking to it. But bear in mind, so if you hear these discussions, oh, soft, hard, well, soft is the dominant structure. Here you have, but we will share the slide. So the yellow is, I guess, soft bullet. There most, 15 countries have more than 90% is soft bullet. So I move on a little bit because we also have the different currency types. That will not surprise you that the euro is the dominant currency, with most issues coming from the EU, the euro area. Then you have the domestic currencies. Think about the Danes, like they issue a lot in Danish krone. But what I also find interesting is the other currencies, and it's not a huge part, but the part is the share of it is growing a little bit. And what does that show is that, say, UK issuers do issue in euro, but Australian issuers, they also go to the euro market or the sterling market. I think it also shows a little bit the further globalization of the covered bond product. Then moving maybe to issuance, there's a little bit the same picture. So this chart is the most interesting, I would say. Shows a bit the dynamics from 2003 onward to 2023. Last year was, again, it was almost 690 billion was issued, so quite substantial amount. Actually, only 2011 and 12 were years with larger volumes of issuance. Issuance goes a little bit hand in hand with, like I already said, TLTRO operations of central banks. If central banks offer a lot of cheap funding to banks, they don't issue covered bonds, but they go to the central bank, or they issue retained covered bonds. Now, you can also see the split. Public mortgages. Mortgages is really the dominant. Even more than 90% is backed by mortgages. Here you can see again a bit the breakdown, but maybe I move on to this chart. Here you can see the hard soft bullet structure. Again, you see the downward sloping line for the hard bullets and the soft bullets. Almost 80% of issuance was in soft bullet format, and only 66% was outstanding. So you can expect the share of soft bullets, the outstanding share, to increase in coming years, and the hard bullets to come down further. This one I wanted to highlight, also a topic hotly debated, and we will have this academy sessions. Also people speaking about ESG covered bonds or sustainable covered bonds, so covered bonds which are green of nature, so financing green buildings, but also social covered bonds, so social housing, hospitals. And 2014, we didn't start collecting data already in 2014, but we started collecting 2019. But the first one was issued in 2014. But as you can see, and that's really a milestone, I would say, the outstanding amount breached the 100 billion mark last year. And that's still not that much. We have 3.3 trillion of covered bonds outstanding, and 100 billion are in sustainable format. But so it's only 3%. It's still a bit of a niche. There are all kind of reasons for that. But you definitely see more and more issuers coming to the market, and hopefully after the sessions that we have this week, we will see more issuers doing this, as of course there's a huge, Draghi, I think he included it as well. The energy transition is just about to start, and retrofitting of existing buildings is quite a challenge, and maybe green cover bonds are a good fit to finance that. These are the countries where you have the sustainable cover bonds. So now it's Germany, France, Norway in this respect is also a country where a lot of sustainable covered bonds are issued. And last but not least, of course, issuance, a bit the same pattern. You see more and more issuance, and actually a share of sustainable covered bond issuance in the total is also higher than the outstanding. So also here the story is that we will see, I think also the total outstanding amount of sustainable covered bonds rising in the total picture. So I think, yeah, you got the size, the breakdown, the regions, issuance. What else do you need to know about cover bonds, I would say? But these are the hard facts. Oh yeah, maybe that's the last bit. That's already, we're already in, what is it, September? So we have a bit of a view already for next year's exercise. And yeah, we have seen quite some issuance, not as much as last year, but still, yeah, more than 130 billion of at least euro benchmark issuance. So I think next year we maybe have another nice message to tell. So I hope you enjoy Porto, the conference, of course, all the content you get, but also the social part of it. So, and if you have any questions, yeah, feel free to ask. And you can also read the whole statistics, everything about it in the fact book. And now I stop. Thank you.